Hi, I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is the Candice Malcolm Show. We have a great episode for you today. We have Shaun Newman joining us in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about the worst excesses of Pride Month. It's June, it's Pride Month, and I'm actually told by my producer it's not just Pride Month anymore. We now have to call it Pride Season. It's like going to last the entire summer. So we're going to get to that, but I want to start with some more serious business here, which is the fact that our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, doesn't want to pass a budget. Well, the opposition parties, led by Conservative interim leader Andrew Scheer, are doing their best to try to compel him to issue a budget so that Canadians can have an idea of what our new Prime Minister and what this new government plans to spend our money on. And so on Monday evening, the House of Commons passed a Conservative amendment to the throne speech demanding an economic update or budget before the House adjourns for the summer. That includes full accountability of Canada's finances. The motion passed, folks, 166 to 164, with support from all opposition parties. I can't tell you how rare this is, that the Conservative Party would put forth a motion that would be agreed upon by all of the other parties aside from the governing Liberals. It means that the NDP and the Bloc had to agree with this. It doesn't happen very often in Canadian politics, but when it comes to just the basic business of government, I mean, hello, this is like government 101. Like, what are you spending your money on? We're told that Mark Carney is this like expert banker and finance guy. Why can't he just tell us what he's spending his money on? It's actually absolutely bizarre. So good for the Conservatives for getting this motion passed. Good for all of the other MPs for having the common sense to say, yeah, we need to see the budget. Let's play a clip of Mark Carney during question period saying that he would take note of the Conservative motion, as if it was just a suggestion, not binding, but still. Let's play that clip.
We take note of last night's motion. But what Canadians deserve, what Canadian provinces deserves, is a health care transfer, is a transfer for child care, is a transfer for dental care, is a transfer to support affordability. That's what's in the main estimates, and we expect the support of members opposite.
That's just sort of neither here nor there. It's like, yeah, you could expect those things that the government said they're going to pay for, but we just want to know what else you're spending money on and where it's going. That's like the entire point of a budget there, Mr. Carney. Next, we have this clip of Prime Minister Mark Carney implying that Canadians should just trust him, saying, we know how to grow the economy without spending money. So let's play that clip.
Unlike the member opposite, I know the difference between a main estimate and a budget. Here. And unlike the members opposite, we know how to grow this economy without spending money. And that's why we're proposing a bill to build one Canadian economy out of 13.
So always quite a show in the House of Commons once they have a question period back up and running. But, you know, this idea that they know how to grow the economy without spending money, well, then why do they keep spending so much money? I wanted to get a comment on this from our friends at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So I'm going to throw to this clip of Franco Terrazzano commenting on this entire episode. Over to you, Franco.
The banker was supposed to be better with the numbers than the drama teacher. But you can't have any credibility on the finances if you can't even bother to put together a budget. First, the Carney government told Canadians that we weren't getting a federal budget at all this year. Now, that is just completely unacceptable. It's our money. We deserve full transparency from the government. The government owes Canadians a budget. Now, the Carney government, after backlash from Canadians, says we'll get a budget, well, sometime this fall. Well, why is the government waiting so long? How bad are the books? Not to mention that our members of parliament who we elect will have to vote on massive government spending. MPs also need to know the state of the finances before they vote on the massive government spending. Now, we do not have a budget yet, but the government has released its main spending plan, formerly known as the main estimates. Now, Carney, during the election that he just ran in, said that he would rein in the massive government spending. But it looks like Carney is going to continue Trudeau's debt-fueled spending spree. So those main estimates have more than $480 billion of spending in it. That's an 8% increase over the last year. In fact, the government has nearly doubled spending since 2016, according to those main estimates. So what does that all mean for you? Well, more debt means higher taxes today, or higher taxes plus interest tomorrow, or more inflation as the central bank prints up new money out of thin air to finance Ottawa's huge deficits. It also means that your kids and your grandkids are going to be making payments on that debt for the rest of their lives. Now, remember, folks, the Trudeau government doubled the debt in less than a decade, and Carney plans to continue Trudeau's debt-fueled spending spree. So here is a breakdown of Carney's budget deficits that he ran on in his own election platform. 2025, a $62 billion deficit. 2026, a $60 billion deficit. 2027, a $55 billion deficit. And 2028, a $48 billion deficit. Gross. So over the next 4 years, Carney plans on adding $225 billion to the debt. So for comparison, the Trudeau government planned on increasing the debt by about $131 billion over those same years. So Carney plans on adding almost $100 billion more to the debt than even Trudeau planned. More debt also means more taxpayer dollars wasted on interest payments. So interest charges on the debt are already costing taxpayers more than $1 billion every single week. The Parliamentary Budget Officer estimates that interest charges on the debt will cost taxpayers about $70 billion by 2029. So enough is enough. Open up the books, put down the credit card, and pick up some scissors.
Well, that is some common sense if I've ever heard it from Franco. I wish that just an ounce of that common sense would rub off on some of those members of parliament in the Liberal Party and the Liberal government. All right, I want to introduce our guest for the rest of the show. I'm talking about Shaun Newman. Shaun's the host of the Shaun Newman podcast, where he discusses issues relating to faith, family, and the broader Canadian political landscape. Shaun, great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Candice.
Well,
It's funny in your clips there. It goes from Carney saying we're not going to spend money and we're going to grow the economy, and then you flip to Franco, and Franco is showing that he's going to not only spend as much as Trudeau, but he's going to add $100 billion onto that. So something doesn't add up there, but that seems to be Canada these days.
yeah, it's almost like one of them is not telling the truth, and
That's
I'll
right.
let the audience make that
Yes.
decision for themselves who they think is being straight with us. It's interesting because you just think someone with Mark Carney's pedigree and his background. I mean, I think a major part of the reason he was elected is because people think he's a competent, trustworthy person who understands budgets and financing. And yet, like the basic element of that, release a budget, he's not doing. It's interesting because during the campaign, they did release a costed budget for their platform that showed how much each promise would happen. That in of itself is a fairly big endeavor. And so you would think that if they could do that, they could do a budget. And also remember at the time, the Conservative opposition accused them of just taking Justin Trudeau's budget, crossing out Trudeau government and writing in Carney government. And the media insisted that wasn't the case. Rosemary Barton on the CBC said that there was no evidence of that, and that had been debunked. And yet here we are, like, if they can come up with a costed platform, why can't they come up with a budget? I think they're trying to pull some tricks. During the election campaign, Carney mentioned that he wanted to change the way the budgets were written. So there's operating versus capital. And so that requires going in and just like changing a bunch of stuff. And so I imagine that he just needs like more time to do that so that when they finally release a budget, it'll look better than if they were just being straight and giving us the real numbers. What do you make of this entire episode here?
You've been, like I always, whenever I get across from someone such as yourself, you've been staring at this problem and in the political circles longer than I have. But it's not shocking to me to see a politician say one thing and do something different. It's just become the same old thing. Like it's not surprising anymore. Carney has said lots of things. He's doing. He's doing what he wants. And what's interesting to me about the clips, when you're showing him talking in session, is I remember when Justin Trudeau, maybe 5 years ago, was it 6 years ago? There was a time when if you looked at all the faces of the Liberals behind him, all the MPs, they were all like nodding right in. And then towards the end, everybody had their head down. Everyone, they were just like, this is embarrassing. And they all got their swagger back. They're all very much in line with what Carney said. You can almost see them just like, yeah, we got our leader back. So, the Liberals they have a plan. It doesn't mean I enjoy their plan. It doesn't mean that I think it's going to be the best thing for Canadians. I wish more Canadians would have paid attention beforehand because, yeah, Carney came in with these slogans and elbows up, and we're gonna do all these great things, but his track record hasn't been that. I mean, he's tied. Like just go dig into it a little bit, and you're like, this isn't what we need. This is actually drastically what we do not need, and we're seeing that right away. When it comes to the money, the budget. We're going to be spending lots, and we'll wait and see. But I don't. My hopes aren't set on Carney or any other politician for that matter. I think I've been maybe I'm a little bit cynical when it comes to the world of politics. But a politician saying one thing and doing another thing, I think that's the oldest playbook they have.
Well, in some ways, I think that I want Mark Carney to do something different than what he said because, I mean, if you go back and look at his book Values and the ideology that he has been promoting basically his entire adult life, pushing for net zero, pushing for, just many of the schemes that the World Economic Forum comes up with. He sort of like infamously said, I'm an elitist and I'm a globalist, but that's exactly what Canada needs right now.
Correct.
Right. It's like, and then try to like circle that square with the Mark Carney that we saw this week at the First Ministers meeting saying, we want Canada to be a energy superpower and we're going to do what we can to push through these national nation building projects and these.
So which one is it, Candice? Which one is he?
I'm going to hold out hope that it's the Carney this week, right, and not the Carney of 6 months ago. But the classic political bait and switch. It's like we're just waiting for it. We're just waiting for it for the mask to come off and Justin Trudeau to be back, but just wearing a
Well, he definitely isn't Justin Trudeau, right? Like he's definitely a different version for a Liberal leader. He's definitely. I don't know if you could. Like who, I don't know how you could get another Justin Trudeau in office at this point. Like he just, like 10 years that, just like, how's this guy our leader? When I watch Mark Carney, I see a lot of things where I'm like, I understand the appeal to him at times, right? And the guy who was sitting in Saskatchewan, you hear the things coming out of him, you're like, that's interesting. That actually is interesting. Now, can they get it done? That's an entirely different question. And will they get it done? And, and what's he going to go back to the East and say? And how's that going to go? Right? Like there's just so many questions, it's interesting to me to watch it play out, but until there's shovels in the ground and things start actually getting built and things start moving the right direction, like I don't have a ton of faith in it. And we've seen, that you bring up his values book. I have a hard time going, he wrote that. You can still hear him talk about net zero and different things. And I'm like, even when he's talking about pipelines, he's talking about getting to net zero. And you go like, I don't know. I have a hard time believing he's become a completely different man, and he's going to set Canada up as the energy superpower of the world. I have a hard time believing that.
Well, and even if you could picture him doing it, right? It's like he's still in the same party as Stéphane Guilbeault. He's put him in his cabinet, right? Like he's still got Gerald Butts in the midst. He just appointed a new chief of staff that was a former United Nations person that's also, close with Gerald Butts. Like, it's hard to imagine that he's going to just like turn his back on his entire party, let alone, his constituency. It was really Quebec that pushed him over the goal line here. And we've heard from many leaders in Quebec that, for them, a pipeline is just a non-starter. It's not going to happen. So it's interesting to see how he balances it all. In some ways, I think he's digging himself into a hole, and it might be a rude awakening for someone who's so inexperienced in sort of partisan politics. What can happen when you try to be all things to all people?
Yeah, well, he's paying lip service to both sides, and at some point, rubber has to meet the road, and we're going to find out which way it goes. I think I have my idea of where it's going, but only time will tell.
Okay, I want to move on to I think a funner topic, and that is that it's
Instead
June,
of
which means it's Pride Month. And Pride is a cardinal sin, but in our culture, that is the time where all of the bank logos change to rainbows, and all the Canadian flags go down, and the rainbow flags go up. I really actually thought that we were moving away from this, Shaun, as a culture and as a society, that it kind of peaked around like 2021 or 22, and then it was slowly going back to normal. And then June hits us and it's like all right into our face. So here we have Anita Anand on X. She's a cabinet minister in the Carney government. She writes that today marks the beginning of Pride season across the country. Everyone deserves to love who they love and be their true selves free from discrimination. Happy Pride. I think it originally went from like a day and then it became a month,
a
Pride
week,
Month.
a month, a
Pride
season,
Month,
it'll
right?
be a
Right.
year soon enough.
Right. Like, like Friday is D Day. We have one day to celebrate the incredibly sacrifices that were made during the Second World War that really built Canada into the country that it is. We have one day for that. And yet it falls in the middle of this entire month dedicated to, uh, sure, it's great that people can have general freedoms in our society. Freedom is really important, but I think it's turned a corner into like we're not just celebrating acceptance, we're celebrating and promoting like a hedonistic lifestyle that's obsessed with sex. It's like we're just celebrating the fact that these people go out and get to have sex with whoever they want. We're supposed to congratulate them for that. What do you make of all that?
Well, I would say I think you're when you said I think we've moved on from it. I think most people have. I think most people are just like whatever. Like you want to raise a flag, give her. Like we don't really care. The problem is when they start jamming it down your throats, right? Like when we talk about Pride season, and I just chuckle at that because I'm like I know a handful of stores where the flag never goes down,
Mhm.
where the crosswalk is always painted. It's just there. And it's funny to, what it was it Air Canada had their first all pride.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna get to this. Just
We're
hold
gonna
that
get to
thought. We're
this?
gonna get to
Well,
it. Yeah.
okay. Well, in the video, it's funny, and I'll bring it back up again because the pilot's like, well, let me get. I better make sure I get this right because there's a couple extra letters in there. I'm like, no kidding.
Yeah.
Every 10 days there's a new letter. Every
It's
10 days there's a new color on the flag. It's like I really don't care. The problem is, as a father, the reason it really hit a feverish point a few years ago is it was starting to, and it still is. Don't get me wrong. Alberta just had their, they're talking about these books and getting them out of the schools, and then they're being criticized for banning books. And it's like, have you opened some of these books? Like, what parent wants any of that material in there? Nobody. So, like, when it hits a certain age group where it's in a parent's peripheral, right? We're supposed to be there to be like, this doesn't make sense. That's when it really irritates, I think, a lot of people. I mean, it's just, I'm a diehard Edmonton Oilers fan. Tonight, the Oilers play Game 1 of Stanley Cup Finals, and what do they do? Happy Pride Month, and you're just like, but can't we just play hockey? Do we have to I just want one, but that's become everything. Everybody's like that. It's just they haven't learned their lessons yet. You go back to the Dylan Mulvaney can and Bud Light. They learned their lesson. They moved on. The United States now, I think they put out more and more stuff just trying to get away from all this ideology. They're not trying to demonize the actual person. You want to be an adult and go do your thing. Most of us are like, well, I don't want, okay, fine. But just stop jamming it down our throats. It's time to move on. Like this is just played its course, I guess.
Well, 100%. And like to me, when I see it at schools, like I'll be completely transparent. My husband and I were looking around at schools for our kids, right? And there was a school in our area that we were interested in. It's a private school. And so we went out there to like tour it and literally they had a pride flag up, right? And they had no Canadian flag up. And so to me, it's like the idea of a flag is something that unites everybody, right? And so a Canadian flag is supposed to represent every single person in the country, right? But when I see a gay flag, I don't feel represented in that. In fact, I feel like it's someone else pushing their ideology onto children, right? Like the
Because
idea
they
of
are.
being gay, it's like it's a sexual thing, right? And so what does it have to do with children and kids? Like it to me, it's just so blatantly wrong. And like I honestly, after I saw the flag, I'm like I can't in good conscience send my children to that school because I don't agree with the core values of the school. And I fear that that has just spread throughout our entire society. Now, Shaun, I just have to preface this because we have been getting demonetized on YouTube lately because some of our episodes are just a little bit too spicy. And so I do have a couple of more examples that I want to
Are
share,
you
but we're
saying
going
I'm too spicy for your YouTube, Candice? Is that what I'm getting?
well, maybe you. I mean, me too, because a couple of the episodes that got defunded, it was just me alone, my choice of topics. But yeah, so we're going to continue this conversation over at Juno News. I urge everybody to head on over to junonews.com, become a premium subscriber, and you can watch the rest of the show. It's going to be a good one.